Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the QT2 Systems podcast series, My Greatest Moment. And I'd like to welcome our featured guest today, Lauren Paulson. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. I am so excited to hear your story. So just the little bits you've told me so far, I can't wait to get started. So I want first just generally, just right at the beginning, what is your greatest moment? And I know it's a series, so just lay it out quick for us.
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely a process and a series of experiences, but specifically over my time doing endurance training and over this last year is sharing these experiences with like my husband, who acts like I'm an Olympic champion every time I do anything, and with family and friends, just hearing people who follow along. I post some of my stuff on social media on Facebook, and hearing people say that I've motivated them to get off the couch or go for a run or do a 5K, and just to hear people say that they're trying to better themselves. That to me has been just an amazing experience. So that would be, I would say it's a culmination of connecting with other people and loved ones.
Okay. So you're doing, though, just in terms of the actual events, you're celebrating turning 50, right? With what are you doing to celebrate?
So I'm doing a race every month of my 50th year. And so I have decided that that's something I love. I love to race. I like to compete, and I can just share my husband asked me what I wanted to do for my 50th birthday. And we were kind of brainstorming. He's like, "Do you want to go on a trip?" And I was like, "You know what? I just love racing. I love, competing, and it's not like competing against other people. It's just challenging myself. And I've had a long list of kind of bucket races that I've wanted to do, and I've been checking those off, but this gave me an opportunity really to prioritize those.
Mhm.
And it's been so much fun. So yeah, I mean, I could go through the races if you want me to, but it's a race every year for my 50th.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to back up and talk about some other things first. I'm going to come back, but I do want people to appreciate that this isn't like you're not doing a 5K every month. You're doing some really big stuff. So I want to back up and just figure out how you got here. So you just turned 50 this year. So tell me a little bit about endurance sports and how you got into them.
Sure, sure. So I've been an athlete all my life. I started swimming in fourth grade and swam in college, have been a competitive swimmer, a little bit of running. And then I took some time off of college. And then after I graduated with my master's, I had taken some time off, got a little out of shape, and then went back to master swimming. And that's where I was introduced to more endurance races. So I did like the Chesapeake Bay swim. And my husband and I trained for a marathon. We did the Columbus Marathon in 2001, I think it was. And then I got introduced to triathlon. I had some friends that I was swimming with, and they said, "Hey, we're doing this sprint triathlon." And I borrowed a bike from a friend, and I had no business riding a bike, but I could swim and I could run. And so I did my first sprint triathlon, I think in maybe like 2008. And then that was it, right? So, I had so much fun. I mean, it was awful, but like I still had a blast. And then I just started to make my way up to doing Olympics. Okay, that was great. That was a great challenge. And of course, every time I finished, I was like, I'm never going to be able to do any more than that. And then I signed up for a half Ironman, and then signed up for a full Ironman. And have in between, I've also have taken up ultra running. So yeah, I can't count how many 50Ks I've done. I've done a handful of 50 milers. I've done a total of 10 full Ironmans. So and then I sprinkle in Tough Mudders and the Spartan races, and just anything that challenges myself, and to me is an adventure.
Okay. I mean, 10 full Ironmans. 50 milers, 50 Ks plus the extra stuff in between. I mean, and you keep on going, you keep wanting it. I mean, have you ever through that point, like come to a time where you weren't sure that you wanted to, or you lost your motivation or anything like that to keep on going?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know if I ever really just, lost my motivation completely, but I was last year before Ironman Lake Placid, I was kind of feeling like pretty flat. I wasn't really excited. It was the day before the race and I didn't have the normal kind of energy that I have where I just, I'm really excited. And so I work with Anne Basso and reached out to her and was just like, I'm kind of not feeling it. And, she sent me some articles and really had me focus on my why and kind of brought me back to my why and why I do this. And that really kind of ties into, the decision for what I'm doing for my 50th birthday as well. Right. So I had it, I got all fired up again and I had a great race and Ironman Lake Placid, qualified for Kona, went to Kona. And then, so that was in October. And then right after that time is when my husband said, hey, we need to start planning your 50th because he wanted to do something for my 50th. What do you want to do? And, that was just really kind of the motivation or the spark of coming up with the idea.
Yeah. So, so you last year went to Kona. Was that your first time at Kona or had you been before? Yeah. That was really special. So so what do you feel like in an all women's race? What do you think of that?
It was
You like
so, it was empowering. It
Yeah.
was, it was just, it was a really cool experience. Just being around such inspirational women, intense. I mean, there's some intense women there too, right? But still really supportive. Everybody's polite, everybody's, good job, way to go. And I'm certainly not winning anything or coming close to it. So I was just happy to be there. But that was just a historic experience to be a part of.
Yeah.
Kona's
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, having raced at Nice this year, people are like, what do you most looking forward to? And I loved it. I loved lining up with just women. It was really exciting. And I have to admit, I was really happy there were no men in the swim because it was the worst. Because I was
Battered around
as
quite a
much. I didn't get beaten up nearly as much as I normally do in a swim.
swimming background, I tend to start out in the front. And I've been punched in the face. I mean, I don't know if it was on purpose, but like, I mean, I've been up in those races.
Yeah, it's fun. So, well, that's exciting. But so what then, like, just I'm curious. So your why, and you came to it, and what were you thinking? So where did you come up with? What is your why?
I mean, my why, I just love, like I said, it's tied into my greatest moment, right? So,
Mhm.
having those experiences, shared experiences with other people, I have made some amazing friends, who, also challenge me to be better, and be the best version of myself. Um, but I love, just seeing what I can do. Like when you think there's just no way I can do that. I mean, like I said, when I finished an Olympic, I was like, there's no way I can do a half Ironman. And then, when I finished a half Ironman, I was like, there's no way I could do a marathon after, 112 miles on the bike. Um, Even this year, I finished my first 100K and I was like, there's no way I could run more than 60 miles. Right. And so it's just, but you do it. And to surprise myself every time, you know, that that's inspirational for me and that just kind of keeps me going. I'm like, I have to stop setting limits for myself and seeing what I can do.
Right. Love that. I have to stop setting limits for myself. That's yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do, right? We're constrained by by ourselves a lot of the time. And you just free that and you realize that you can do so much more, so
All the time where I'm
right.
like, can't believe I just did that. I can't believe my body just allowed me to do that. And that's another thing is like, I get to do this, right? I mean, my body, I mean, I thank my body all the time. I'm like, I beat you up. Thank you so much for, the adventures you take me on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk talking with your husband after Kona, you decide for your 50th birthday, a race every month. So once you decided to do it, tell me, tell me what happened next, picking your races and figuring out the plans.
It was fun. I mean, it's a lot of work to try to figure out the logistics of all this, right? Because I mean, I work very, very long hours, very busy. I have a unique schedule. So we decided this in November. And so I was like, what am I going to do for my first race in January? And my husband had a conference in Miami. So I I worked very hard to find myself a ticket because it was already sold out. So I basically signed up for Miami with like 6 weeks of training. So I did the Miami Marathon in January, and then it was just kind of thinking through of like what's on my bucket list and what can I get into, um, and where does it fall in the year, and how can I manage this? You know, I had the one of the big bucket list goals. I had a couple of races that we can talk about, but one of the bigger bucket list goals was to do a 100 miler. And I wanted to do like one of the epic 100 milers. And that was like for my 50th, or, it was something I wanted to do before I died, right? Was to do a 100 miler. And so I was like, well, it's probably a good time because I'm not getting any younger. Um, but to get into those epic races, you have to qualify, right? And you have to get a lottery ticket. So I'm not quite able to do the epic race. So that one of the races that I'm doing next month is a 100 miler, and I will finish it, and it'll give me a lottery ticket for Western States. So that will be that bucket list item. But there are races. So one of the races that I did just in September was the SOS Triathlon.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's an 8 state
Yeah.
race. And I've been stalking that race for a while, but it's always right after Lake Placid. And I've done Placid for 4 times. So, I just haven't been able to kind of get into that race. So that was one that I was prioritizing
Mhm.
to do. Um, the other one that was kind of a big epic experience that I wanted to do was the rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon.
Um,
And so, yeah, it was great because I wanted to do it, and I didn't have anybody that, I mean, that's kind of a big ask,
Yeah.
and to be able to, have somebody who can run with you and do it. And I was at dinner with one of my girlfriends who actually was a QT2 pro athlete for a while. And I told her this is something I wanted to do. And she's like, I'll do it with you. And
Nice.
this was like in September. We both teach college, so we were like, okay, we only have like a certain time in the summer that we could do this. And I literally sent her a text the next day, and I was like, if you're serious, like I'm gonna plan this. And so she said she was, and so we did the rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon in June, at the beginning of June. It was 120 degrees. It was really hot, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was so incredible. Like
Yeah.
words for how amazing it was.
I actually had an athlete that did it this year also. And it just,
I can shut my eyes and just see
yeah.
the views. It was just incredible. I would totally do that again.
I mean, so with that, it's not really, it's more an adventure than a race, right? I mean, you just sort of
Yeah. I mean, you're pushing
figure
yourself.
out,
Yeah.
you're pushing yourself. Yeah, no, and I mean, it totally counts. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but it's not like there's, hundreds of people that go out and do it at once. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's what counted as my June race.
Yeah, well, I count that for sure. I mean, I mean, for people who don't know, what are we talking about here? Mileage, elevation? I mean,
Well, I can't cite them. I should know the elevation, but I can't cite it. But you basically go from the south rim to the north rim and then back to the south rim, like across the Grand Canyon and back. It's about 50 miles. It's like 47 miles, depending on which way you go. And we went South Kaibab to North Kaibab and then back up Bright Angel. But the challenge was the heat. In the shade, it was 110. It was just so hot. But
and you have to carry everything with you, right, when you do it.
it's dangerous. I mean, the
Yeah.
time that we did it, it was not advisable to do it. I wouldn't tell anybody to do that during that time, but we were very well prepared and trained, and we're ready for it. So, it was a good experience.
Yeah. Okay, so that was, I think you've told me January, June, September, and November. So what are some other things that you had that you did or in?
So in February, I did the Cabin Fever 50K, which was in West Virginia. It had snowed the day before, so that was an adventure. Did that with some friends. Um, in March, I did a stacked race. So it was a half marathon, a 10K, and a 5K back to back to back. So that was a more local one. That was fun. April, I did the Eagleton 50K, which is in Central PA. Um, May, I did Chattanooga, 70.3. And I told you got to meet my coach there in person, which was great. July was the Great Hill 100K. So that was my first 100K. That was hard. That was when I said, I don't know how I'm going to go past 62 miles, but I'll be doing that soon. And then August was my shortest race. That was an Olympic triathlon. And that was simply because I just didn't have, like, I couldn't travel anywhere. I didn't have time, like work, life, just everything got in the way. So I just did a local race that I had done before, which is an amazing local race. And then on this Saturday, I'm doing the Oil Creek 100K. So that's another local race. I've done the 50K probably 5 or 6 times, but this is the first time I'm jumping up to the 100K.
Okay.
But it's one of my favorite places to run in the world. It's so pretty there. And then of course, Pinhoti 100 miler November. And then I have not decided what I'm doing in December. I keep joking around and saying it's going to be like a Jingle Bell 5K. Knowing me, it probably won't be. It'll probably be something else, but I have not signed up for my December race yet.
Okay.
Be determined. I'm waiting until the 100 miler because this is the 100 miler is going to be a stretch for me.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a challenge in a good way, but I'm just going to kind of wait and see how that goes.
Okay. So when you've done these longer, like the longer trail events, the 100K is now coming up to the 100 miler, do you use support crews or do you use pacers or how do you?
Well, my husband is the best Sherpa in the world. Yeah, he is amazing. I've done other races that have been unsupported. I've done ultra Ironmans that have been unsupported, and he has, crewed me through that. So he's always there, for whenever I need anything. I haven't had a pacer yet. I'm gonna have a pacer for the 100 miler. I have a really good girlfriend who's done the Pinhoti, and she's gonna run like 25 miles with me. I told
Okay.
her it's probably in the middle of the night. So
Yeah, when are you going to pick the pacer? What part of the race?
unfortunately for her, it's probably gonna be at like 3 a.m.
Yeah. Well, if she's been there though, she knows when it gets really hard, right? When you start seeing things and yeah, questioning the decisions that you've made in your life.
She's gonna be exactly what I need at that time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So what kind of course is it for the 100 miler you're doing?
Well, I mean, it's a single track, most of it. There's a few big climbs. It does climb up to the highest point in Alabama.
Okay.
Again, I don't remember the elevation for it. But I've just started to kind of study the course. Because it's been hard because I have a race every month. So it's like, okay, I have to like prepare for this race and then try to recover and then try to ramp back up for the next race. So now I'm starting to really kind of plan out, aid stations and my crew and my pacing. What am I getting myself into?
Well, I mean, you just mentioned a piece I do want to talk about because I mean, looking at this list that you just gave, okay, you're like, yeah, but Ollie, it was no big deal. Some people train all season to do an Olympic distance triathlon. These are really big races to put back to back, and you're not just running. I mean, you're still mixing in your swimming and your cycling to do some triathlons in there. So how is your training structured and I mean, Anne has worked with you to make sure that you're getting the recovery that you need.
Yeah, I mean, it's because of Anne that I've been able to do this. I started with QT2 back in 2018 because like I just was plagued with injuries because I just I didn't have any business figuring this out on my own. And so I started with the mission plan just because I needed a structured plan. I'm plenty motivated to go through the workouts and do the workouts. And then I came to Anne with this idea, and she was like, fun. Sounds like a good, this sounds amazing. And so we've just been kind of, we work towards like the bigger races. So it's been kind of like, let's just see how the body goes. And then, she'll build out the plan from there. But I've still been doing a ton of biking and swimming. And my body has not typically been able to do heavy running. I tend to get hurt, but this is the most I've ever ran ever, these last few weeks. And she's been great because I'm always like, and shouldn't I be running more? Or shouldn't I be lifting more? And she's just like, trust the process, Lauren. And she has been right every time. It's been amazing. And, her expertise has made it so that I've been strong and I've done well, like at least in my age groups, in all these races. But the real kind of important piece is being able to just keep doing it, and having fun. And I'm definitely having fun doing it, but I wouldn't be able to do it without Anne.
Yeah. So, yeah, so this has been a good decision to do for your 50th birthday, to do all these, all these
I
adventures.
keep joking around to my husband and everybody else who will talk to me about it, is I want to do it next year. My husband says no. Rightfully so, because it's been a lot on, and he's been great and supportive, but it's been so much fun. Reem, it's been a ton of fun. I wish I could do it again.
Yeah, well, maybe for your 55th or your, See, for my 50th birthday, I jumped out of an airplane and I thought that was epic enough. So
I love that.
that was fun. I screamed like crazy the whole way down. My son was on the ground. He's like, Mom, I can hear you up 10,000 feet screaming. It was really fun. That was great. I highly recommend it. It ends a little quicker than, than 100-miler though, that's for sure. So that is very neat. I love this because it's just, yeah, people talk all the time. They're like, oh, I'm just going to race every month, but I've never heard anyone race like this every month. These are like each one of these races. Almost each one is something that people is a lifetime season, a bucket list item, and to see that, like, 50Ks and 70.3s and 100S and SOS, my gosh, that's just like a crazy race. And to go up to, to go up to 100-miler. So how long do you think it's going to take you for the 100-miler? Do you have any sense? Or
that's the goal.
Yeah.
You have to do it in 31 hours.
Okay.
My goal is just to finish
Yeah.
and enjoy as much of it as I can. I know at some point I'm not going to enjoy it and it's going to hurt. But I just I'm out in the woods doing I love trail running. I love being out in the woods. That's my happy place. And so I'm going to try to just soak in as much of that and be grateful for my body and, and for my life to be able to have this experience.
Yeah. And how do you, for 100-miler, how do you possibly eat enough to keep going for 30 hours if it turns out?
I know, it's just like an Ironman, it's so, it's the fourth discipline, it's so important. I've been working on it with the folks that are going to be crewing me. I'm going to start planning. I of course, from my Ironman training, I know like about calories and carbs and salt and the things that my body typically needs, but this is new territory for me. So, but my husband has been around me enough when I've been in really bad places after racing that, he knows the questions to ask. And the crew that's working with me, they've crewed other folks and 100-milers. So I think, I'm going to have this team around me that's going to, help me get through it. Yeah. I don't know. To be determined. I'll have to report back afterwards.
No, I have no doubt that you're going to that you're going to do this. So, I mean, one of our ultra coaches, she always says, she's like, ultra running is about eating. Like, she's like, you gotta get enough in. So I'm just, are you still like, when you do your, I mean, Ironman, it's all like, okay, I'm taking my gels and my sports drink and my, like, it's all like that. But I feel like trail running is a little more,
Yeah.
there's more food, like, right?
I remember my first 50K, I was like, the third aid station, I ate a piece of pizza. I was like, I had
Okay.
on that race. And, that's coming from Ironman training where you can't have a piece of, I guess you could take pizza on the bike, but I don't think.
I don't know that I've ever, I guess it's possible. I don't know if I've ever seen someone, but you could.
But it
Special
is,
needs bag, open it up.
I do joke around that that's one of the reasons why I like trail running, because it's just like a buffet all day long.
Yeah,
These and there's quesadillas and pizza and all the things. But I don't know if my stomach will allow that, 24 hours in. We'll see.
yeah. I mean, that's always like best laid plans. And then you see, then at some point, it's just about getting in whatever you can get in, right? So, yeah. And I'm just curious, like on an event that long, will you change your running shoes or change the clothes you're wearing or?
Yeah, for sure. I know that the temperature gets pretty cold at night there, and you're on a ridge line, at like 2 in the morning. And some of the race reports that I've read, there's, it gets windy too. So because of the variability in the temperature, I'll definitely change, because I'm a big baby when it gets cold, so I'll want to bundle up. But then I think just for comfort too, you you change. I mean, I definitely will change once, if not twice. And then as far as shoes, I didn't change my shoes for the 100K. I did change my socks because I was starting to get blisters and that
Mhm.
made it worse. So I'm not really sure. I'm gonna play around at this 100K this weekend.
Right.
Some new, not new, but new racing gear and see how that goes.
Okay.
You ask people for advice and you get different advice. So I have to figure out what works for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, you get to use 100K as a test run, and so don't ever try anything new. I guess if this is your practice, this is your practice run for the night for the 100 miler. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I did, because in Ironman before, I've like left socks in my personal needs bag to change. And in these, we weren't allowed to put anything other than food in our personal needs bags. And I was so stressed about it. I was like, what if I need to change my socks? I mean, it turned out fine,
You ever
but
changed socks?
what's that?
You ever changed your socks?
I actually did on that day, and I'm not, whether I need, I don't know. I had them, so I did, but yeah. Yeah, usually you throw all that stuff in, you don't use anything
Right.
anyway, but
That's what my husband's like. I pack bags of stuff. And he's like, you just fly through the aid stations. He's like, you don't even stop. You have all this stuff. Why do you bring it? I was like, it just makes me feel better to know that it's
just
there.
in case. Yeah, well, I think maybe in 100 mile, you'll probably be happy to have the extra, like the police in there, yeah.
Stop a little longer at those aid stations.
Yeah, just a little bit. So is it like a looped course or is it a single, like,
The A to B.
really? Okay. So no turning back, really. I mean, once you're going.
Yeah, and that's what really I like about this race, because there's a little bit about loop courses where I just want to bang my head. I get bored where I think A to B is just going to be something new every time. I think it just will make it more enjoyable.
Yeah. How many people in this one, do you know?
Um, I think that it's either 200 or 300 people signed up so far for the 100 miler, which is a decent size for that type of, like, that big of, or the distance of race. I forget. I think it's 300, but I'm
Yeah,
not.
but spread out over 100 miles. I mean, I suspect people spread out pretty quickly on in ones like this. So
I'm sure I'll be by myself.
yeah, but
Um, which will be neat. I think I'm not. I mean, I've never ran all night long in the dark, so we'll see how that goes.
yeah, well, you will have your friend there at 3 in the morning with you.
Cautiously bright light though, so I'll be fine.
No, that'll, that definitely helps. So, and then descend then. So after you do the 100 mile in November, you decide how you want to cap things off. Maybe like the beer mile, something, you know, like celebrate. I don't know. I feel like it has to be fun, but I don't know how you can go more epic than the 100 miler, but I'm sure you'll, if that's where your brain's going, you'll come up with
Open
something.
diet, so.
Yeah, that is cool. So anything that you haven't talked about yet that you want to, or
No, like I said, I'm having a blast this year, going through all these races. Yeah, and I'm still thinking about next year, and I have a few things, like I've signed up for a few things next year, and I just think that this has given me the opportunity to see what I'm capable of,
mhm,
and to, like I said, not limit myself to, you know, give myself the courage to go out there and try new things and push those boundaries and see what my body can do. My
yeah.
body, right?
So I'm curious, the people who know you, did they're like, Lauren, you're crazy? Or they're like, oh yeah, no, this makes sense.
Both. Both. I mean, I hear that all the time. But I mean, this is not new for me. I'm always kind of doing, adventurous stuff. My husband and I both do. Um, I think, but yes, I still have people say that it's crazy, but cool, right? I mean,
Right.
I don't get on Facebook very much, but I post every month whenever I do something, and
Mhm.
it's just, between friends and coworkers and family, like people are just following along, and they're like, "You better post this month and tell me what you're doing," So it's been a fun kind of journey with like a community of people who are kind of on board for this adventure.
Yeah.
Again,
And
that's
you said that this has gotten some of them maybe more active than they would have been, or exploring things that they wouldn't have looked into
and I've
otherwise.
done that by handfuls of people, and to me that's just really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool because I think it's so easy to just kind of get stuck in doing the same old thing and being scared that you can't do something, and it just like fear of failure prevents so much, and just giving yourself the opportunity to go out and see what you can do
Yep.
opens a lot of doors. So it's great. Just do it for you, do it, inspire people around you, and I love it. What a great way to celebrate 50. And and one thing though that did strike me that you said earlier was like you needed to do it before you died. And so you had to do it this year. I'm like, you've got a long time between the 50. So get your qualification.
While it's still a little easier, I think it's getting
Yeah.
harder
Yeah.
to run 100 miler.
It does. I'm always so amazed. There was just saw this picture of the woman who was, I think, 103, and she was running and pushing, and she had just broken like the 100-meter record or something. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And she looks fierce. So
That's gonna be me.
yeah, yeah, I hope so. All right, Lauren, thank you so much for sharing your story, and good luck with your races these next three. And we'll definitely check back with you beginning of the year to see what your final one was, because I'm curious now.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks
All
for the opportunity.
right. Thank you, Lauren.